Greetings, everyone. Welcome back for our third in a series of devotionals we're doing for the season of Lent. Today, I would like to talk to you about the subject of forgiveness. In the Small Catechism, Luther states that where there is forgiveness of sins, there is salvation. Today, I would like to speak to this in the following way. When we understand how important forgiveness is with respect to our spiritual health, we can also experience the assurance of our ultimate salvation. Of course, it is important to remember that forgiveness is an ongoing need. It's not something that we need just once or twice in life. This is why Jesus, when Peter said, "How many times, Lord, should I forgive? As many as 7?" And the Lord responded using Hebrew numerology. He said, "No, 70 times 7, which is another way of saying forgiveness is infinite. And in a parable, Jesus talked about a king who forgave his servant 10,000 talents. It would take, I don't know how many years to earn 1 talent, but it was many. So once again, the idea is that forgiveness is ongoing and something we always are in need of. I have a story that might help us put this in perspective. A police officer who often allowed his anger to get out of control when he made an arrest was finally sent to the staff psychologist to talk about this particular issue. For him, the stakes were very high. Unless he could learn how to control his anger, he would either lose his job or end up being reassigned to some boring desk job. To make a long story short, this particular police officer grew up in a neighborhood in New York where crime was rampant. His father owned a small grocery store, and this particular neighborhood was bad in that people who owned small businesses were often victimized. So his father was the victim of things such as shoplifting on a regular basis. He was held up. He experienced break-ins where much of his inventory was stolen. These sorts of things nearly put him out of business on several occasions. Now, the police officer's father was a very faithful Roman Catholic, and while he did press charges and had the bad guys convicted when he could identify who they were, nevertheless, he never allowed these criminals, most of whom came from one of these federally financed projects, not the most pleasant places to live, where drugs and gang violence were a common occurrence. However, his son, the man who became a police officer, partly because he harbored a great deal of resentment and anger against these thugs, while his father was an exemplary role model who took him to church on a regular basis, he felt so much anger due to his father being victimized so much, he could not forgive these people. He wanted them punished and put away. Now, the psychologist eventually got him to realize that his current anger problem was probably a consequence of his inability to forgive. and let the pain of seeing his father victimized go. He held on to it, and when any of us hold on to a negative issues from our past, it's going to poison both our present and potentially our future as well. An inability to forgive, even those who don't necessarily deserve it, will take hold of our hearts and possibly cause us to become chronically unhealthy in a spiritual sense. It can even cause people to act out their unresolved hatred on members of their family, friends, co-workers. In his case, it caused him to hate people who violated the law, harmed other people, and were quick to react negatively to even small infractions. Over time, he developed the insight he needed, thank goodness, to figure out why he was such a chronically angry person. But here's the thing. While a shrink can help a person such as this, it takes the love and grace of God to transform a heart filled with pain and resentment so that one can be healed through forgiving and letting all of that pain and resentment go. Make it a thing of the past. Do not allow it to define your present. Do not allow yourself to be chained to things that you can't do anything about. To be chained to the past is to become a slave. And that is what he needed to be able to do, to free himself. Now, forgiveness is not simply a matter of deciding to forget about the pain and anger. That's not possible. It's a matter of actually letting it go so that it doesn't exist anymore. It's a matter of unlocking the chains and letting the person go. This, like any kind of healing, takes time and it takes prayer. We need to ask God to become our healer through his free grace in Jesus Christ. Christ on the cross is the guarantee of our forgiveness. His suffering and death is what accomplished our reconciliation with God. So while the grace of God in Christ can and will create a clean heart within us, as the psalmist put it in Psalm 50, healing takes time. I might also add that when we have been the ones who have caused harm to others, hopefully we will feel guilt, because if we don't, there's something wrong with us. Guilt is actually not a bad thing. It's a symptom of a person who knows they've done something wrong and who wants to confess and be reconciled to those he or she may have harmed. In a fit of anger or when we are under a lot of stress, these sorts of things happen. When we ask to be forgiven, it will be then up to the other person if they want to accept it or not. But we can't control their reaction. When you ask for forgiveness, whether the other person grants it or not, God does. At that point, it can be let go. There is no reason to be stuck in guilt so long as we take responsibility for our behavior and we ask for forgiveness. Because like I say, with God, forgiveness just never ends. Either way, what we experience when our hearts are cleansed of anger, resentment, or guilt, we are also reconciled to God. This is why Luther said, where there is forgiveness of sins, there too is salvation. God is gracious, forgiveness is infinite, and the assurance of our salvation is directly connected to our ability to forgive and to accept forgiveness. Thank you for listening, everyone. I hope you found this helpful. Please join us again next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.